Hey guys, welcome to Fast Talk. Today we have our guest Megan Tobler. She's here to tell us more about entrepreneurship, and I'm just so excited to hear her wisdom. Thank you
Well,
so much for being on.
thank you so much for having me, Sophia. I'm really excited to be here.
Of course. I would love to know more about your business. What do you do?
So that's kind of a loaded question. It's something that's evolved over the years. I'm a recent entrepreneur. As of last year, actually, I just celebrated my 1 year anniversary of being laid off from my corporate job. So
Congratulations.
thank you. It was a really exciting time, but in that last year, I've also become a mom. So things haven't progressed as quickly as I've wanted them to be. But to give your long story short, what I do currently today is I am a podcast host where I interview women like yourself who have taken the leap and started a business of their own to live a life that really just lights them up inside. And that business is ever evolving as an entrepreneur. I can assume that you understand how businesses constantly evolve. So I'm sure we can talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I definitely think that is 100% certain for like every type of industry that you are doing, because the years change and people change as well. So we have to change with them. And sometimes it's hard, but I just love how you invite people from like everywhere to share their story on how they became what they are today and how to be an entrepreneur. It just really shows that you are like on point with that. I just really
Oh,
love that.
thank you so much. And I think that you said something really interesting, and that's the things obviously change. And I think as entrepreneurs, you have to be adaptable and you
Yeah.
have to be willing to pivot in your business.
Yeah. I would say so. I've had so many businesses and stuff, and it just changes so much over the years. But that's what I love about the podcast, because you could see different people how they've went from painting to now they're doing different art sculptures and all that stuff. And I started blogging, and then I went into podcast, and it just shows how you just work with the times and work with what you're able to do.
Exactly. It's just about getting started.
Yeah. And it shows your passion too. How passionate you are sees how far you go. And I've seen a lot of passionate people, and they go really far because even if one thing doesn't work, they see that there's another opportunity, even though they haven't tapped into it that much.
Definitely. You bring up something really interesting, that's passion. And I think that in entrepreneurship, something that is really important is to really understand your why behind what you're doing and behind everything
Yeah.
you're doing, because entrepreneurship can be really hard. And
Yeah,
before
it's
we even hit
definitely
record
not.
today, it can be lonely too. It can be a very lonely experience.
Yeah.
Mhm. So being able to identify what it is that is the reason that you're doing these things is going to be able to
Yeah.
help you in the good times and in the bad times. It's just a good little reminder to be able to keep yourself going towards that passion and really towards that end goal.
Yeah, I think keeping your mind focused on why you're really here, why you're really doing this, and why you sacrifice so much really helps you continue on into like the next stage for yourself. Because if you don't have an image or a goal for yourself, you can never try to reach it, and you can never know what to do next. And that's just living a hard like cage.
I completely agree. And no one wants to live in a hard cage, right? You
Yeah,
want it to be a little bit more flexible, to be
yeah,
able to go into all these different directions, like we are talking about with the pivots here.
yeah. Like I just love to see when people like I had this one episode, we had an insane amount of technical difficulties, and it took us about 5 times in one day to just record a podcast. And then it's like, oh, it wasn't recording. That's great. So we had to reschedule, but it just showed that like she was also passionate to be on the show and still wanted to, even after all that stuff, she was still able. She was like, okay, we can still do this. Just pivoting your way, even though entrepreneurship is not like a one time, okay, we're done and this is super easy. It's the hard stuff. It's not easy.
Oh, it's not easy. And I think that if it was easy, that everyone would do it.
Yeah,
But um, but not everyone's doing it. And there's a reason why. And like we were talking about, when it gets hard, you need to understand what it is that why that is kind of behind everything, because it isn't going to be easy. So like you were saying, if you're having technical difficulties, which gotta love technology, but there's always going to be
Yeah.
something that arises. That's what I've learned. But you have to just be able to run with it and be flexible, like we were talking about also, and just adapt. And also just have a sense of humor, laugh it off, and
Yeah.
just learn from it. Because if you don't, then it's going to just eat you alive.
Yeah. And you can't just take everything too hard on yourself, because that's how you go into that cage that we were talking about. You just put yourself in there because you are obviously you made it like as far as you went. So that means that you're doing something. But once you keep beating yourself up, you lose that goal of yours and you start tapping into other things. And that's when people start losing their passion.
Completely agree. And it's interesting because every single person that I have on my podcast is a female. And what I've noticed as a trend throughout all my conversations is that a lot of women kind of suffer from perfectionism and
Yeah.
imposter syndrome. And that's something that I think that I don't know why, especially as women, that we have these beliefs a little bit more than
Yeah.
our male counterparts, but we do. And I'm sure we could dissect that in another episode here.
Yeah.
But I think that we are so hard on ourselves and
Yeah.
sometimes don't allow ourselves to do certain things that we really want to do because we think it has to be perfect, or we don't believe that we're good enough, or it's already been done. And the girl down the street or on Instagram is much further along than I am. So why do I even bother, you know? So I think that we're our biggest blockers to holding ourselves back. So going back to what you were doing with the podcast and you were having technical difficulties, it could have been really easy for you to say, you know what, like, I'm just not meant to do this. It's just not going to happen. And just quit. But you
Yeah.
didn't. And I think that is a really sign of a strong entrepreneur and someone that really has that strong why and the passion that is just really lighting you up inside.
Thank you. I also completely agree with you about the perfectionism. That plays a big role, I think, because we all the women really grow up in that, like through high school, middle school, college, you're constantly competing with each other. And we grow up in that with the world that we live in. It's competitive and just hard. So as female rules, that's what our brains are constantly thinking without sometimes without us knowing. And because we are so trained in that, and then Instagram, you just constantly comparison. And so it makes us harder for our goal to reach them. And just that's why I love Instagram to get reached out. That's how we got in contact. But then it's also, you could see that sometimes it just tears people. It just depends on how you respond to it.
Yes, I completely agree. And one of the things that I always like to say is that I believe in collaboration over
Yeah.
competition. Because I do believe in it. Like I have an abundance mindset. I do think that there's plenty of this to go around for everyone.
Yeah.
And we win together and we lose together. And I think that if we just all link arms with each other and really just raise each other up rather than tearing each other down, the world was
Yeah.
going to be a much better place. So personally, I like to surround myself with people like you, and people
Yeah.
just like we were talking about Inball earlier within the like-minded community, to be able
Yeah.
to surround ourselves with people that are just positive and forward thinking and really just want to see each other succeed. And I think that's a really big key about being an entrepreneur, is finding that community and finding people that do want to collaborate with you rather than to compete with you.
Yeah, and I also think that collaboration also just makes us so much stronger, because if you're having like a rough day, they could just help you in like any way, because they know you guys think same, or else you guys wouldn't be friends or connected. And so they know the struggle that you're going through and they will be there for you. That's what I love about Inball's community. It's just so great, and she's so good at bringing people in. And that's a main part of entrepreneurship. You're just constantly bringing people in.
Yeah, completely agree. And I think you attract like-minded people, no pun
Yeah.
intended, with your community.
I definitely think that, yeah, you become more of a magnet to people and people start coming in, and then you start making connections, which help you in the long run too, because like maybe you want to start a business and you're slowly starting, and because you made all those connections, it's easier to have a better audience.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's just a natural progression with everything.
Yeah.
It's you attract, like you put, I guess I'm trying to say it eloquently, which it's obviously completely not coming out that way. But going back to that abundance mindset, I think that some people are so they operate in lack mode, where they think
Mm,
that I have to do this because I have to get this many followers, or I have
yeah.
to get this many likes or this many impressions. But I think sometimes if you just operate from the abundance mindset, almost operate like you already have it, then it's just going
Yeah.
to naturally come to you, and you're going to naturally attract it. And it's just going to be organic, rather. And people feel this stuff, you know?
Yeah. Rather than forced, because when you feel forced, it's less of a connection. And also, sometimes not a lot of people will see it, and the people who did see it were meant to see it.
Exactly. Well, and going back to kind of finding like your community and really connecting with people, in addition to joining communities like Involve, something that I also did as an entrepreneur is invest in specific like trainings and courses, but also there's a ton of freebies and free resources out there
Yeah.
where you're joining these groups of like-minded people, who are all going after similar dreams and similar businesses, and just getting into these chat rooms and connecting with them that way. Because that in turn just organically allows you to meet some of these people as well. And
Yeah.
they naturally just start talking about your business for you. I mean, today, Inball's not even on this podcast, but
Yeah.
her name has been brought up multiple times here because she is so good at doing
Yeah.
just that.
Yeah, and I think that, those communities are super good because you get to hear other people's wisdom as well, even if they're near the same age. For me, I don't think that would be the case, but for other people, they might be the same age range, but they're going through different struggles, and together you create like a puzzle because you are helping each other where the weak spots are, and your weak spot might be their strong suit. So it's just really great to hear the ear and listen to what they have to say because for the most part, 90% of the time, it's very helpful and it's just gonna help you and just make it bigger for you to expand your thoughts and what you should do.
Yeah, and you brought up a really good point there too. It's that you, as an entrepreneur, are not going to be perfect at everything.
Yeah,
I previously came from the corporate world before starting my own business. And when I started my own business, I always knew it was going to be a lot of work, but I didn't really understand how many hats I was going to have to wear in my own business. And it gave me a different level of appreciation for my corporate job when I realized that, oh, wow, each one of these departments, like they had a tough job, but now take everything that they did and now I'm doing that myself. So
yeah,
the lesson there though is that you cannot be an expert at anything or at everything.
yeah,
So one thing, like you mentioned, was understanding like you're going to have certain strengths and other people are going to have others. So being able to connect with these people and learn from them.
mhm,
And even if you're just starting out, potentially bartering services where, hey, let me help you out here and you can help me out here.
yeah,
Because when you're starting out as an entrepreneur, money is typically a little bit more tight than it might be as if you're further along in your journey there. And also being able to, so like basically being able to outsource, delegate, or even kind of swap services here to be able to make sure that you're really honing in on your, what I like to call zone of geniuses.
yeah. I think I agree with that, and I strongly believe that the community is what really makes you a true entrepreneur because without a community, you would have no, I would say, feedback because there would be nobody. except you who knows what to do. And if there's nobody to guide you, then you kind of fall. So I think the main thing about being an entrepreneur is not only all the hard work you do, but the people who are surrounding you as you do that hard work.
I feel like that's a mic drop moment right there because it truly is about the people that you're surrounding yourself with. It's bigger than you, you know?
Yeah. It's it's how you build too, like how the stepping stools, they're holding the stepping stools for you. And while you do that and while you excel in what you do, it's just really an effort for everybody.
Definitely. And in addition to it being about like the people, I also think that entrepreneurship is like a mindset because I think that sometimes people think that entrepreneurship is just about starting a business, but I think it's more of like a concept of wanting something
Yeah.
more, wanting to create more, wanting to improve something. So it's really just really making something better and having this vision for
Yeah.
more.
Yeah. And I think that when you are looking at the vision, like we talked about earlier, it helps other people to see where you're going, see what you're thinking of when you're doing all this. Like when I'm doing the podcast or when you're doing your podcast, you know exactly what you're thinking and you're sharing that viewpoint on your podcast with the woman that you are supporting and how they are supporting you. That's like the main thing about podcasts, mostly like ours. You are supporting each other, you're promoting each other. Like we like you said earlier, how we're promoting Inball because we have such a good community that we constantly are bringing her up because she has been there. She has been the person holding our stepping stools.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's I hope that one day we're in a room and or we're not in the room, but someone's talking about us the way that
Yeah,
we're talking about Inbal because I think that's the ultimate goal is to be able to provide so much value to someone that you're really changing
yeah,
their life. And that's really my definition of success. It's really changed over the years. It's no longer attached to a dollar sign or attached to a
yeah,
title. It's attached to impact. And if I personally can just impact one person's life, then that's success to me. And I know if Imbal ever hears this, then I hope that she feels like she has really been successful because she's
yeah.
definitely touched our lives.
Yeah, and what you said earlier about you have a different idea of
Mhm.
what entrepreneurship looks like now that you're in it. I think that is so true because a lot of people go into it like, oh, this would be great. It's a way we can stay at home. It'll be easy way to get money until they actually go into it and see. And then your whole idea of what entrepreneurship look like changes. And I think that's why a lot of people go into entrepreneurship and come out a fully different person.
Completely. But it's not, I mean, it sounds glamorous, but I will
Yeah,
say that it is tough. There are days where I mean, I'm speaking for myself here, but some days that you just don't want to do it, but you are the
yeah,
only one that is going to do it. So you have to put on those big girl pants and just do it anyways, despite those feelings, and know that it's going to take time to get to where you want to be. So again, going back to finding your community and understanding your why is really what's going to help you push through those times of doubt
yeah.
and resistance, and just really trudge forward.
Yeah, I really agree because everybody who has been on my podcast has never once said, "Man, I walked into entrepreneurship and this was the easiest thing I have ever done." It's all the opposites. They're like, "Man, this is the hardest thing I have ever done." And some days I'm just like, "Why did I do this? Why did I decide to go into this?" Because now it's like hard work and they're
Well,
seeing
it's funny that you bring that up because I have been introducing different facets to my business slowly, like doing one thing at a time. And the next thing that I was doing was I announced that I was going to do guest collaborations for blog posts. And so I announced this to my entire community through my newsletter, had people send me their guest posts already for blogs. And I was ready to go. And then people reached out to me saying, "Oh, what platform are you going to use?" And did not even realize that I needed to use a specific platform for blogging. And I wasn't even thinking about SEO. I mean, that's just not what my background came from. I'm
Yeah.
not a marketing expert whatsoever. And so I had to actually put a pause on that and say, go back to my community and say, you know what? I kind of got a little bit too excited here. I'm pushing out my launch date a month because I have some things I need to work out. And
Yeah.
so it's not easy. Sometimes you're going to goof, but I think it's just being open and vulnerable to the experience.
Yeah.
And with what I did, I just kind of, I'm taking it as a learning experience and I'm taking people along the journey with me. So I'm
Yeah.
not pretending to have it all figured out because I don't have it all figured out. And I honestly don't think I ever will. I think that that's kind of the beauty of entrepreneurship is that you're always going to be learning and improving. And that's the kind of journey that I want to be on. I never want to just feel like I'm stagnant.
Yeah. I love what you're talking about how you don't want to be too perfect because I also think it's harder to relate to somebody who is constantly being perfect, and it makes less people be like, "Oh, well, if they're perfect, I have nothing to I don't really want to hear that because I know I'm not perfect and I don't wanna hear about all their accomplishments and all that." And it's harder to connect with them, and then you lose, like,
Mhm.
audience and a bunch of other stuff, but being real is, a good part of that's why I love all of her like-minded communities because 'cause they're all so real, and you could tell they're like, "Oh, well, I just dropped my kids off, so sorry that I'm late," and I just really appreciate that because I don't have that struggle. I have more the struggle of, like, school, like, "Oh, sorry, guys, I have school," and I just really appreciate that they're not like, "Oh, well, I'm not gonna bring my personal life into my business." Instead, they combine it and balance it and show that my personal life and business should go together because my personal life is a part of that. Like, I sacrificed my personal life for it. So it
Yeah.
has it has the right to be a part of it, and I just really love that.
Yeah, there's a concept of work-life balance, but I like to
Yeah,
say that it's more like work-life integration. Because especially in entrepreneurship, it's really hard to have complete balance. Like I just recently had my first child, and balancing is kind of impossible. I mean, he's here 24/7. I'm building this business, so I have to figure out how do I integrate both worlds together, because
yeah,
I want to raise my child and have all of this opportunity to be able to be his mom and to make sure he turns out to be this wonderful human that I know he's going to be. But I also want to build this thriving business. So it's really making sure that I can integrate both of them successfully
yeah,
together. And some days are going to be probably more successful than others. But it's like integrating, like you said, like you have school, but you're also building these businesses, like integrating the
yeah,
two together, and being raw and vulnerable and just transparently sharing everything you're about. And I know that when I came from the sales world in corporate, before I would get on the video calls, I would sell through video, but it didn't always used to be that way. Back in the day, like when I got started, it was on the phone. And my numbers actually went up once we got onto video because I am quirky and goofy. And I think it just allowed people to kind of drop their guard down a little bit and understand that, oh, she's just another person. Like
yeah.
there's nothing to be afraid of, and I can just talk real.
I just love that, and I, think that everything that you just shared today really resonated with me, and I just really got to understand your point of view of entrepreneurship, and I pretty much agreed with everything that you said. So I just I just really loved talking with you and just communicating. I just learned so much too. So
Well,
I
thank
just
you
really
so much.
appreciate it.
Well, no, I appreciate you as well. And I've learned so much from you. And I just have to say, I know that you're still going through school and you have such a wonderful, bright future ahead. I mean, I wish I started when I was in school. I regret not starting sooner. So I have so much respect and admiration for you that you're just going for it. And you're
Thank
not letting
you.
your age stop you because age should not be a factor in anything.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I hope that we can communicate more and just talk.
Absolutely.
And
I look forward to it.
yeah, have an amazing day.
You too.
Sorry, it's like 9 minutes left.